I became impotent in a car accident shielding my wife, Bianca. Yet, she used my need for rest and recovery as a pretext to resign from my university position on my behalf. When I sought her out to demand an explanation, I found her, Professor Bianca Lowe, locked in a passionate embrace with her graduate student, Julian Xu. I'm pregnant with his child, Ethan. Let's get a divorce. I signed the divorce papers without a moment's hesitation. Because in my previous life, I hadn't. In that life, clutching our daughter, Mia, I'd stormed into the dean's office, exposing their affair. The resulting scandal, the vicious rumors, drove Julian to a desperate leap from a building, ending his life. Bianca, my professor wife, was dismissed from her post and stripped of her party membership, her reputation in tatters. She had knelt before me then, admitting her mistakes, and resigned herself to being a homemaker. I believed, foolishly, that things would heal, that our life would slowly mend. But the following year, on the anniversary of Julian's death, she had snatched Mia from my arms and, with chilling deliberation, thrown our daughter from the balcony of our high-rise apartment. Then, as I stared in catatonic horror, she doused our home in accelerant and set it ablaze, watching as I burned alive. Her last words, seared into my dying consciousness, were, "Do you know how my Julian died? You've had your year of freedom. Now, it's time to pay with your life." This time, reborn, I wouldn't cry or create a scene. I agreed to the divorce, but I had no intention of letting her escape unscathed. "I've already written a letter of recommendation for Julian," Bianca said coolly, as if discussing the weather. "He'll take over your position once he graduates. After your accident, your inability. This is his way of repaying me for helping him, and my way of thanking him for this child." She added, with a pat on my arm that felt like a viper's touch, "Be a dear. Once the baby is safely born, I'll remarry you immediately." My pupils constricted. She was already handing me an envelope, a supposed compensation. "Oh, and remember to write a recommendation letter to the university as well," she continued, her tone infuriatingly casual. "Hand over all your previous experiment data and notes to Julian." I froze. The memory clawed its way back. Before our marriage, I had desperately wanted to be at the same university as her, Jiang City University. I'd fought tooth and nail to transfer from the neighboring institution. All I needed was a single letter of recommendation from her, a simple gesture. But she'd refused, her voice laced with self-righteousness. "Don't always think about using connections, Ethan. What will people think of me?" So, for 3 long years, I'd toiled, making the 300-meter journey between the 2 adjacent universities feel like an insurmountable chasm. Now, for another man, all her vaunted principles had evaporated into thin air. I vaguely suspected the envelope contained a recommendation letter for me, perhaps to another, lesser institution. Or maybe an apology, a token acknowledgement of my 5 years of devotion. But nestled inside was nothing more than a room key card for a cheap motel nearby. "Your key project, the one you've been working on, isn't it close to yielding results?" she said, her voice devoid of any real warmth. "Staying nearby will be convenient for you to hand everything over to Julian. He's young, after all. He'll have many questions for you." I said nothing. My life, my career, my future, all neatly arranged by her, without my consent. In 5 years of marriage, this was the most Bianca had ever spoken to me at one time. I would have preferred our usual strained silence, the unspoken resentment of a mismatched couple. Noticing my silence, she placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch now feeling like a brand. "Don't think I'm being unfair. I'm doing this because I care about you. It would be too strenuous for you to manage a newborn in your demanding research. That's why I asked Julian to take over your position and experiments. Surely you don't think I'm playing favorites." Her gaze was earnest, almost convincing. "I can promise you, responsibly, that your name will be credited on all future research papers and patents." Her sincerity, however feigned, was quickly exposed. A student knocked and entered the office. "Professor Lowe, as per your instructions, all of Professor Thorne's data and papers have been revised to list Julian Xu as the primary author." The smile froze on Bianca's face. The student, noticing me, handed the documents to me. "Oh, Professor Thorne, you're here too. Then you can sign off on this. Professor Lowe, mention that you've been suffering from depression since your accident and have decided to give up your career. Are you feeling any better now?" Before I could utter a word, Bianca curtly dismissed the student. A heavy silence descended. Finally, I broke it, my voice flat. "As a fellow professor, Bianca, You know what a diagnosis of depression means for someone in our profession. It meant an inability to conduct experiments, to teach, to mentor. It meant no university would willingly hire a teacher with compromised mental and physical health to educate students. She hadn't just sabotaged my current career. She had systematically sealed off any possibility of a future one. Ethan, I didn't think it through that far, Bianca stammered, her composure faltering. Before she could finish her excuse, Julian Xu, who had been lurking nearby, dramatically dropped to his knees, slapping his own face. I'm so sorry, Ethan. Please don't blame Professor Lowe. She only did this because she cares about me, to protect my future. He continued his theatrical display, tears welling in his eyes. I just wanted to repay your kindness, yours and hers, by ensuring your family line continues with a son. What Professor Lowe has given me are mere material things. But her heart, her thoughts, they are all for you, Ethan. I remained silent, my face an unreadable mask. He clearly hadn't expected my lack of reaction. He hesitated, unsure whether to continue the self-flagellation or stop. Bianca rushed to his defense. Julian means well, Ethan. Why must you be so unforgiving when you have the upper hand? She then delivered the truly galling line. Do you know, just a few days ago, Julian was discussing with me how the baby, once born, should recognize you as its godfather. To be godfather to my wife's lover's child. Was that supposed to be some kind of honor? Just as a bitter laugh threatened to escape me, Julian dramatically swayed and collapsed backward. Bianca immediately caught him, then shot me a look of utter disdain. You're truly unreasonable, Ethan, she snapped, before sweeping out with Julian in her arms. Watching her retreating back, a cold certainty settled in my heart. The compassionate young woman who had once rushed me to the hospital on a rainy night, who had tended to my injuries with such care, that Bianca was well and truly dead. I opened my contacts and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Dad, I want to come home. I don't want Bianca anymore. I lost my mother at a young age and was raised, perhaps spoiled, by my doting father. My relationship with Bianca had caused a severe rift between us, leading to a complete estrangement. He had feared she was a bad match, that I was making a mistake. I, in my youthful arrogance, had accused him of being materialistic, of not understanding true love. Now, despite everything, his voice was gentle, welcoming. You've been wronged, son. Then come home. I'll arrange for someone to pick you up in 7 days. I bit my lip hard to stifle a sob. In my previous life, the day Bianca threw Mia from the balcony was my father's birthday. As I plummeted through the air, engulfed in flames, my last horrifying vision was of him, holding a birthday cake, approaching our apartment, hoping for reconciliation. He had aged decades overnight, his hair turning snow white. The pain of witnessing his granddaughter and son die before his eyes. I couldn't imagine the devastation it wrought upon his already frail health. But Bianca's cruelty hadn't ended there. She'd blamed me for everything, claiming I suffered from severe depression, and had then systematically tried to swindle my father out of his entire inheritance. Even in death, she sought to destroy my reputation, ensuring I would find no peace. My father had lived out his remaining years in desolate solitude, while she remarried a handsome young man and bore him several healthy children. This lifetime, I would ensure she never knew such peace. With that resolve burning in my chest, I returned to my old laboratory and systematically packed up all the data I had painstakingly compiled over the years. This included irrefutable evidence of Bianca's academic misconduct. I intended to entrust it to a reliable colleague, but upon entering the office, I found all my belongings piled next to a trash can. Julian Xu was sitting at my desk, casually eating bird's nest soup, a delicacy, and waved at me. Ethan, were you looking for the supplements on the desk? I assumed no one wanted them, so I shared them with everyone this morning. During my hospitalization, I'd not only been grading student papers, but also trying to care for Mia. The immense stress had caused me to lose over 20 pounds. I'd bought the bird's nest soup to regain some strength, but hadn't even had a chance to open it. And now it was gone. Mia, in my arms, began to wail. I clenched my fists, saying nothing. I rummaged for the infant formula I'd bought for her, only to find an empty can. Oh, that formula, Julian said, his face glowing with rude health. I figured adults could drink it too. I've been feeling a bit weak, and Professor Lowe said it would be good for me. He spooned another mouthful of bird's nest soup, sipping the milk. Mia, in my arms, had rarely had a full belly since she was born. A surge of fury, hot and uncontrollable, coursed through me. Did you ask for my permission before taking my things? His eyes instantly reddened. I'm so sorry, Ethan. The package arrived a while ago. I thought no one wanted it. A mirthless laugh escaped me. It arrived this morning, and you're telling me it's been here a while? More importantly, don't you have a mouth? Don't you understand basic courtesy, like asking? But I don't have your contact information. I pulled out my phone, about to confront him with our chat history, but as I tried to send a message, a glaring red exclamation mark appeared. He blocked me. He had barely scraped through his graduate entrance exams. No supervisor had wanted him. He had actively sought me out, tearfully recounting his family's hardships, claiming he'd be forced into pig farming back in his village if he couldn't continue his studies. I'd taken pity on him, even introduced him to Bianca, bridging a connection for him. And this was how he repaid me? His first act after gaining a foothold was to stab me in the back. Colleagues, also enjoying the bird's nest soup, chimed in. Ethan, it's normal for young people to be a bit thoughtless. Why are you getting so worked up? Is it because of Bianca? If so, you should blame her. You don't dare confront Bianca, so you're taking it out on Julian? What's the point? We've all eaten the bird's nest soup. Are you going to blame us too? These were Bianca's friends. They had once praised Bianca and me as a match made in heaven. Now, seeing me divorced, they were all siding with Julian. I was at a loss for words. Just then, Bianca pushed open the door. Her phone screen was still lit, displaying her chat with Julian. Bianca, save me. That pathetic loser is causing trouble again. Without a second thought, she flashed the screen at me. What new drama are you stirring up now? It's just a few jars of bird's nest soup. What's eaten is eaten. I'll buy you more in a few days if it's such a big deal. Seeing my continued silence, she pushed past me to her own desk. After rummaging for a moment, she threw a box of bird's nest soup, far more expensive than what I had purchased, at my feet. Enough? Eat, eat, eat. That's all you think about. Julian and my son haven't even had any, and you get to eat first. I stared at the expensive supplements in her hand, stunned. During my hospitalization, doctors had repeatedly told her I needed extra nourishment. She had brought me cheap fruit or generic gift boxes from the university. When doctors had advocated for me, I'd made excuses, believing she was just straightforward, not malicious. Now it was clear. She knew what was good. She just wasn't willing to give it to me. In my previous life, I'd thought her descent into madness was due to her inability to cope with Julian's suicide. Now, I saw the truth had always been hidden in these cruel little details. Startled by Bianca's shout, Mia began to cry loudly. Bianca frowned in annoyance and instinctively shoved us away. This is a university, not a marketplace. What are you doing bringing a child here? Get out. I couldn't avoid her push and stumbled, my head hitting the wall. The sharp pain in my shoulder told me how much force she'd used. Yet, she seemed utterly oblivious, instead turning to tenderly wipe the corner of Julian's mouth. I took a deep breath, clutched Mia, and turned to leave. The moment I stepped outside, a torrential downpour began. I had no umbrella, and there were no taxis in sight. Just as I considered going back to ask a former colleague for an umbrella, a familiar Mercedes pulled up. The window rolled down. Bianca looked at me, her expression surprisingly tense. You don't have an umbrella? Why didn't you call me? If I hadn't come after you, how long were you planning to stand here in this wind and rain? Her chiding tone, laced with a hint of concern, momentarily stunned me. In a blink, Bianca was beside me, holding an umbrella, draping her jacket over my shoulders. Were you waiting for a personal invitation? Get in the car, quickly. I held Mia tighter and hurried towards the passenger seat. But when the door opened, I saw Julian sitting there, munching on snacks. Sorry, Ethan, he said with a smirk. I always sit in Bianca's passenger seat. It's a habit. Maybe you could take another spot. Bianca was a notorious neat freak. Even I had to disinfect my hands with alcohol before getting into her car. Yet Julian was scattering cookie crumbs everywhere with impunity. The difference between being loved and not loved was starkly, painfully obvious. Seeing me hesitate, Bianca, behind me, grew impatient. What difference does it make where you sit? The back row is spacious. Perfect for you and Mia. I didn't argue, quickly sliding into the back seat. I expected to be home in 10 minutes at most, but the scenery outside grew increasingly unfamiliar. Just as I was about to speak, Julian turned around, a sly grin on his face. Oh, by the way, Ethan, we need to stop by the Research Institute first. You don't mind, do you? Mia was caught in the rain. She's been coughing. I need to get home and change her into dry clothes. I pleaded, looking at Bianca, who was driving, hoping she would show some compassion for our daughter. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face. But Julian interjected. Ethan, the handover documents you prepared were too messy. My research team and I can't understand them. We need you to clarify a few things. The results of this research are crucial for the university's and Bianca's reputation. We can't afford any mistakes. Those notes were the culmination of my painstaking work. The students in the research group had worked alongside me. How could they not understand the documents? I wanted to say that even if clarification was needed, taking Mia home first wouldn't cause much delay. But Bianca cut me off, her tone sharp. Ethan, the few minutes you delay by going home translates to over an hour for everyone in research. Julian's attitude is what proper research demands. Not like you, giving up halfway and then deliberately doing a shoddy handover. Ignoring my protests, she floored the accelerator and sped towards the institute. I sighed. Since I was leaving anyway, a proper handover would at least provide some closure for my experiments. At the lab entrance, Bianca stopped and asked, "What's the door code?" My birthday. For simple digits, yet she fumbled, entering them incorrectly again and again. It was Julian who reminded her. I remember Ethan's birthday is a month apart from mine. Only then did she get it right. Julian feigned surprise. Bianca, darling, you only celebrated my birthday with me once, and you remembered it already? As the saying goes, those who care don't need to be taught. Those who don't care can't be taught. I watched their display of affection, my heart numb. Can I have a warm towel to dry Mia? Bianca nodded, but after a moment, returned with only a dirty cloth used for wiping down lab benches. Even she seemed to realize how absurd it was. You guide Julian with the experiment first. I'll go find a proper towel. I turned to leave. She grabbed my arm. In this weather, if I don't drive you, you'll never get a taxi. Why are you being so difficult? Julian chimed in opportunely. Bianca, why don't you take the child to the washroom and give her a warm bath? We'll try to be quick here, finish in 5 minutes. But once Bianca left with Mia, and I handed the confidential files to Julian, his demeanor changed entirely. Are you slacking off because you don't want to go home? If you don't explain properly, how am I supposed to understand? He sneered. I picked up the experimental apparatus and began a demonstration. He scoffed. What? You think I can't understand, so you're just doing it for me to save trouble? Or are you just showing off your skills? I said nothing, my hands methodically repeating the standard experimental procedure. The next second, Julian deliberately picked up a vial of a hazardous reagent and started tossing it playfully in his hand. Ethan Thorne, stop acting so high and mighty. Do you really think Bianca will remarry you after the baby is born? His voice dripped with venom. All your research achievements are mine now. Even your wife is mine. And your daughter? She's just a fatherless bastard with no mother to truly care for her. Hearing him slander Mia, my hand clenched into a fist. I turned, ready to confront him, but he suddenly let out a shriek and threw the vial. At that exact moment, Bianca, holding Mia, opened the lab door. The reagent, reacting with the ambient moisture or perhaps something spilled, caused a small, violent explosion. After a deafening bang, my head rang and my vision blurred. The only thing I could see clearly was Mia, thrown against the wall by the force. Beneath her, a large pool of the chemical spread, its corrosive touch eliciting agonized screams from my daughter. I was on the verge of collapse. Bianca, how could you throw Mia? My unfinished sentence was cut short by a stinging slap. Bianca was cradling Julian, her teeth gritted in fury. Ethan Thorne, you did this deliberately, didn't you? If she had bothered to look, just for a second, she would have seen my severely corroded left hand. I had been closest to the explosion's epicenter. Julian, the instigator, had deliberately kept his distance, yet now he was crying the loudest. Bianca, my hand hurts so much. Bianca supported him, rushing towards the door. I blocked their path. Mia is injured too. Take Mia with you. She's so small, she won't take up any space. The next second, Bianca kicked me hard in the stomach. I flew backward, hitting the wall, but she didn't even spare me a glance. Isn't this all your fault? And you still have the nerve to say that? The last shred of hope I'd clung to for her extinguished. I scooped Mia into my arms and ran desperately towards the hospital. I frantically searched for a doctor, only to be told that the only available operating room had been reserved by Bianca for her husband. I am Bianca's husband, I cried out, but a mocking voice came from behind me. No, he's not. Julian, dressed in a patient's gown, smirked. Ethan, I know you care about the child, but you two are divorced. It's not appropriate for you to call yourself that, is it? His complexion was rosy, his arm linked with Bianca's. He looked anything but a man in need of surgery. Bianca, I've never asked you for anything. This is the first time I'm begging you. Save Mia. I'll do anything you ask. Enough. Stop pretending. She spat, her eyes blazing with anger. You're the founder of this experiment. You, of all people, should know how to conduct it safely. Using a few superficial injuries to gain sympathy? Have you no shame? Her furious eyes reflected my helplessness and agony. Mia's cries, the extensive corrosion on my left hand. Did she truly see nothing? She warned me with disgust not to cause more trouble, then supported Julian as they walked towards the operating room. A thin door, yet it separated two worlds. My heart turned to ice. Just then, my phone rang. Where are you? Your father asked me to pick you up and bring you home. A flicker of warmth finally pierced the coldness in my soul. I gave them the hospital address. As soon as I settled into the car, Bianca's call came through. There's an available operating room now. Where are you? Her voice was softer, almost placating. I was too anxious earlier. I didn't consider your feelings. Once Mia is discharged, I'll compensate you both properly. No need, I interrupted her. The surveillance footage from the Research Institute, along with the evidence of you forcing me to participate in academic fraud, I've already submitted it all to the police. Bianca Lowe, from this day forward, we have no relationship whatsoever. My childhood friend, Melody Ming, took me to the best hospital in the city. She used all her connections to bring in the top specialists from across the country. But when I rushed to Mia's room with the doctors, the bed was empty. A nurse entered, looking shocked when she learned I was Mia's father. What? You're the father? But Mia's mother already signed a do not resuscitate form this morning with another man who claimed to be the father. I stood rooted to the spot, the world crumbling around me. Just then, Bianca appeared, holding a small wooden urn. I'm sorry, Ethan. Mia, she didn't make it. Mia had never had a proper photo taken in her short life. The space on the urn where a picture should have been was starkly empty. Even her name was misspelled on the label. Tears blurred my vision. I was so overcome with grief, I nearly fainted. Mia, my baby, Daddy is so sorry. Daddy will avenge you. I reached out for the urn, but Julian, standing beside Bianca, let it slip from his grasp. The ashes scattered across the floor. My breath hitched. Before I could react, Bianca stepped in front of him. Ethan, don't blame Julian. We wanted Mia to be okay more than anyone. It was her fate. She just wasn't strong enough to pull through. She then added, with a chilling smile, as if Mia's death was a minor inconvenience. Besides, you were the one on the phone saying no need, talking about revenge. Well, look what happened. Her words made my scalp tingle. Her mouth continued to move. When Julian's baby is born, I'll give him the same name as Mia. We'll let him call you Godfather. How about that? Julian will be busy with his experiments, so you can take care of the child. It'll be the same. How could it be the same? They had not only killed my daughter, but now sought to steal her very name. My chest heaved with suppressed rage, but Bianca's shamelessness knew no bounds. I heard your father is ill abroad. If you raise the child, you could conveniently inherit a portion of his estate too. I remained silent, listening to their grotesque plans for the future, a mixture of fury and morbid amusement churning within me. Bianca, oblivious to my turmoil, continued. Oh, by the way, explain the parts of the experiment you didn't finish to Julian. Those experiments won an award. The awards ceremony and live demonstration are this afternoon. If you want to come, I'll pick you up. For good luck, you know. My daughter's body was barely cold, her ashes still on the floor, and they wanted me to attend for good luck? I nearly passed out. Bianca seized the opportunity to snatch my satchel. I knew you'd keep your data notebook with you. Before I could protest, Julian was already thanking me effusively. Ethan, I knew you were a generous person. Don't worry, I won't disappoint your expectations. My notebook? Could he even comprehend its contents? Experimental work demands precision. A hair's breadth can mean the difference between success and disaster. Was he truly that confident? But I didn't voice my doubts. I watched coldly as he tore out the first page, the one bearing my name, and tossed it aside. Julian. Bianca suddenly called his name, picking up the discarded page from the floor. Julian, thinking she was scolding him for being too hasty, stammered. I'm sorry, Bianca. I didn't mean to erase Ethan's contribution. Even I momentarily thought Bianca had experienced a flicker of conscience. But the next second, She was tearing the page into tiny pieces, instructing Julian, "You're too careless. What if someone with ill intentions found it on the floor? If you feel bad about his contribution, just list him as the sixth author or something." What was this? Even an undergraduate assistant in the lab could be a third author, and she was demoting me to sixth? Had I, the mentor, become the student? Seeing their smug, self-satisfied expressions, I almost laughed out loud. They wanted to usurp my life's work? Fine, let them have it. After they left, I carefully gathered Mia's ashes into the urn. "Mia, my sweet girl, Daddy will avenge you this afternoon." That afternoon, clutching the urn, I went to the university auditorium. As I entered, I ran into Bianca. "What are you doing here?" she asked, surprised. "Didn't you tell me to come for good luck?" Bianca was speechless. Suddenly, her gaze fell on the urn in my hands. Without warning, she tried to snatch it. "Julian needs calcium carbonate for his experiment. It's the same composition as ashes, and the purity requirement isn't high." Her voice was disturbingly casual. "Don't worry, I'll only use a little." If not for the desperate, determined look in her eyes as she lunged for Mia's ashes, I would have doubted my own hearing. My daughter had received no maternal love in life, and now, in death, her mother coveted her remains for an experiment. The last vestiges of pity I might have felt for Bianca and Julian evaporated. I took off the seashell necklace from around my neck. "You need calcium carbonate? Here, take this." Bianca's expression faltered for a split second. When she had nothing, this was the only gift she had ever given me, made from shells she'd collected on the beach during our first date. Hesitation flickered across her face. Then, in the next instant, she snatched the necklace. "When we remarry, I'll get you something much more expensive and better." "No need. Today, you and Julian Xu will pay the price." I sat in the furthest row of the audience, surrounded by murmurs of praise for Julian. Truly a power couple of professors. So young, yet they've conquered such a challenging research project. I heard they fell in love at first sight during their research. Bianca resolutely divorced her estranged husband for love. What a beautiful story. Someone whispered a warning. "Shoo, keep it down. I heard Bianca's ex-husband is here today. He just got divorced and lost his child. How devastating for him. So what? That ex-husband couldn't keep up with their pace. It's his own fault. I heard he relentlessly pursued Bianca. Otherwise, why would a professor like her even look at him? Serves their child right, making way for Julian's baby." Clutching Mia's urn, I had never felt my life to be so utterly absurd. Once, Bianca had nothing. She pursued me for 3 years before I finally agreed to be with her. Now, the narrative was twisted into me being the relentless pursuer. Before Mia was born, it was Bianca who constantly pleaded with me, saying her parents were old and wished to see grandchildren soon. That's why I chose to prioritize family and care for Mia during a crucial phase of my career. Now, everything had changed. "Mia," I whispered to the urn, "Daddy is so sorry. Even in death, you have to endure such slander." At that precise moment, a violent explosion rocked the demonstration stage. It was followed by Julian's blood-curdling scream. "Bianca, my eyes. My eyes." He shrieked frantically, but Bianca was too preoccupied with her own agony. She was writhing on the floor, clutching her hand, her gaze fixed on me with pure hatred. "Ethan Thorne, you did this, didn't you? The formula you gave us was wrong." She charged at me like a madwoman. I didn't flinch, didn't dodge, allowing her first slap to land. Ensuring the reporters, there to document the ceremony, captured everything, I raised my hand and caught her second blow. "What are you talking about? Wasn't Julian Xu in charge of this project? What does it have to do with me?" Bianca froze. If she continued her assault, wouldn't she be admitting that Julian had stolen my work? But Julian, blinded and hysterical, didn't think so. "Ethan Thorne, are you even human? Just because we didn't save your child, you hold a grudge and try to harm me. My baby is 5 months along, and you want to leave him fatherless. To think I even considered letting him call you godfather." His words hung in the air. A shocked silence fell over the auditorium. Bianca and I had only been divorced for a few days. Their child was 5 months along. Didn't that mean she had cheated on me while pregnant with Mia? The crowd buzzed with unspoken understanding and hushed accusations. Someone in the crowd muttered, loud enough to be heard, "Even a talented homewrecker shouldn't be this shameless." It was like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples of outrage through the assembly. Nearly half the academic world was present, not to mention the media, cameras rolling. How could such a scandal erupt? The university chancellor himself stepped forward, trying to silence Julian. But Julian, blind and panicked, mistook him for me and shoved him violently to the ground. "Ethan Thorne, you're still trying to harm me." I watched the chaotic spectacle unfold with cold detachment. The explosion had injured not only them, but also spectators in the front rows. Police arrived quickly to control the scene. But just as they were about to apprehend Julian, Bianca suddenly dropped to her knees before me. "Ethan, darling, you never said this was part of the plan." Her voice was loud, theatrical. "Didn't you say we'd just blind Julian and claim his child as our own? Why did you call the police?" Her dramatic display was so shocking that all eyes turned to me. Bianca Lowe is usually so composed. Why is she kneeling? Could her ex-husband truly have forced her? I heard her ex-husband was hospitalized for depression. It's plausible he coerced her. Most of the audience consisted of our colleagues. They knew I had previously been in charge of this experiment. Under Bianca's deliberate misdirection, they were increasingly convinced of my supposed sinister machinations. All eyes, filled with varying degrees of suspicion and judgment, were fixed on me. I would never have imagined Bianca would stoop so low to protect Julian. "In front of our daughter," I said, holding up the urn, my voice trembling slightly. "Do you dare repeat that?" I hoped, foolishly, that the memory of Mia would make her stop this charade. But I had underestimated her shamelessness. Without a flicker of hesitation, she declared, "I, Bianca Lowe, swear to God, every word I've said is true. If I lie, may lightning strike me dead, and may I suffer a horrible end." A cold laugh escaped me. "This is a society ruled by law, Bianca. Who needs your oaths? Do you have any proof?" Bianca was stunned. Proof? She had none. Only now did she realize how her cleverness had backfired. To legitimize Julian's theft of my work, she had meticulously covered her tracks, erasing any link to me. Would she now produce those falsified documents and incriminate herself? She hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, Julian, regaining some composure, rushed to the police. "Officer, quickly, arrest Ethan Thorne. This is all his conspiracy." The officer looked at him sternly. "Excuse me, Mr. Xu. Our purpose here is to secure the explosion site. Furthermore, we previously received a report alleging that you stole Professor Ethan Thorne's research findings. Please cooperate with our investigation first." "So what if I stole his work?" Julian blurted out, panicked. "Ethan Thorne also intentionally injured people. This is all his plot. He's definitely holding a grudge because I impersonated him and signed his daughter's DNR form." Hearing this, the officer's eyes darkened further. "Sir, are you admitting to impersonating someone to sign a legal document?" Bianca lunged to cover his mouth, but it was too late. The police officer produced handcuffs. "Ma'am, sir, we suspect you have engaged in illegal activities. Please come with us." Julian completely lost it. "What are you doing?" "I'm an injured man." He began flailing wildly. Blinded, he struck Bianca, who was trying to restrain him. He stumbled and fell, wailing, "Bianca, where are you? Ethan hit me. He's trying to kill me." Bianca had taken a solid blow. Now, seeing the reporters' cameras relentlessly documenting their downfall, the very reporters she had invited to build Julian's prestige, she felt a new wave of despair. To avoid further public humiliation, she grabbed Julian. "Enough. Stop it. Haven't you embarrassed us enough?" They were sullenly escorted into a police car. I followed in another. Before the interrogation, Bianca demanded to speak with me alone. Without preamble, she threw a contract onto the table. "As long as you take full responsibility for everything, I'll give up any claim to your father's inheritance." It turned out that when she had forced me to sign the contract relinquishing my patent rights, she had deceitfully included a clause transferring my inheritance. It clearly stated that the assets my father left me were to be transferred to Julian Xu's child. Just then, Melody Meng, my childhood friend, entered with a team of professional lawyers. She had tirelessly helped me with Mia's affairs, and after Mia's death, she had worked relentlessly to gather evidence of Bianca's academic fraud. The moment she saw Bianca, her eyes blazed with fury. "You dare to covet Mr. Thorne's and Ethan's property? Marrying Ethan 5 years ago was the best luck your ancestors could have bestowed upon you. How dare you treat him like this?" Melody was one of the most renowned lawyers in the country. Seeing her, I knew the rest would be handled. But Bianca didn't know that. She was still aggressive. "Who do you think you are? I have a legally binding contract." Melody merely smiled, holding up 2 fingers. "Firstly, a contract signed under duress has no legal validity. Secondly, the property. Transfer in the contract is designated for Julian Xu's child. If the child isn't born, the contract becomes void, doesn't it? Hearing this, Bianca could no longer contain her agitation, screaming, "You wouldn't even spare a child. Are you even human?" When screaming failed, she tried bribery. "What did Ethan offer you? I'll give you double." Melody remained unmoved. Her gaze, full of sympathy, fell on me. "You've lost a lot of weight over the years, Ethan. We had been childhood sweethearts. If she hadn't been lost at sea for a year after a shipwreck during her studies abroad, I would never have married Bianca, whose eyes bore a striking resemblance to hers. People say eyes are the windows to the soul. The first time I saw Bianca, I was captivated by her eyes. Time, however, proved that similar eyes do not necessarily harbor similar souls. Now, realizing how badly I'd fared after the divorce, Melody embraced me. "Don't be afraid, Ethan. I'm here." Bianca stared at us, incandescent with rage. "Ethan, who is she? Why are you hugging her?" Melody and I had done nothing more than what she had openly done with Julian, and far less egregiously, yet Bianca was losing control. I looked at her, perplexed. "We are divorced, Bianca. Please conduct yourself with some dignity." Panic flashed in her eyes, like a dog guarding its food. "What are you talking about? Didn't we agree to remarry after the baby was born?" A self-deprecating smile touched my lips. Bianca had repeated that lie so many times, she had probably started to believe it herself. She seemed to register my thought, her body stiffening. She wanted to say more, but Melody was already leading me away. Bianca tried to follow, but a police officer blocked her path. "Ms. Lowe, Ms. Ming has submitted all the evidence. You are now under arrest and cannot leave." Watching my receding back, she could only rage impotently, her cries unheard. Just like when I had run through the rainy night, clutching Mia, with no one to answer my pleas. With Melody's help, I took Bianca and Julian to court. During the trial, Bianca fiercely protected Julian, taking sole responsibility for all the crimes. Melody later told me she thought she was pregnant, but a pretrial medical examination revealed she wasn't pregnant at all. The previous pregnancy reports were faked by Julian. That young man is quite a schemer. I narrowed my eyes, not having anticipated that twist. Everyone in the courtroom, except Bianca, knew the truth. She alone was kept in the dark, a fool in her own drama. In the end, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Julian received a few months. As the verdict was read, Bianca tried to negotiate with the judge, asking if her supposed pregnancy could lead to a suspended sentence. The lawyers exchanged amused glances and handed her the medical report. The next second, the once loving couple erupted into a physical brawl right there in the courtroom. Bianca was furious. "You bastard. I gave up my family for you, killed my daughter for you. How dare you deceive me?" Even then, she was still blaming others for her own misdeeds. I didn't hear her confessions or accusations, because by then, Melody and I had already left the courthouse and were on our way to visit Mia's grave. As I told Mia the outcome of the trial, I wept uncontrollably. "Mia, my darling, do you see? Daddy has avenged you." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, like her soft hand caressing my face, comforting me. Soon after, Melody and I left the country. Years passed. The next I heard of Bianca was news of her release from prison. During those years, Julian had constantly tried to divorce her, but Bianca, bent on revenge, had refused. Her first act upon release was to confront Julian. They came to blows, repeatedly hospitalizing each other. In their most violent encounter, Julian was permanently blinded. Bianca suffered a ruptured ovary after being kicked in the abdomen. After her release from the hospital, she sent me a letter abroad, claiming she had reformed and wished to live a good life with me. I held the letter, a small, sad smile on my face, and said nothing. I simply asked Melody to send back our wedding invitation along with it. Human joys and sorrows are not always shared. She had been flayed raw by the relentless passage of time and her own choices. But my new life, with Melody, was just beginning.